I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Baka, Kodash. Double honor goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing this truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Once again, coming back at you. This is Shabai from the GMS Denver camp. And today I'm going to go into the book of Nahum. All right, and read some prophecy out of the book of Nahum. Okay, let's see. Let's go to we're going to go to chapter 3. Let's start at the top as always. It says, "Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery, and prey departeth not." The prey departeth not. The noise of a whip, and the noise of rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. Okay, and again, this bloody city we read about is Nineveh, but we know through the Holy Spirit, Babylon, America is the modern day Nineveh. Okay, because everything we always tell you, and we're always teaching you, everything is regenerated, reincarnated. The people, the names might change, but history always repeats itself. So these prophecies that when we read here in this Nahum 3, it says Nineveh, but you have to use your spiritual eye. You got to put on your spiritual goggles and understand this is the prophecy of Babylon, America. Okay, the great whore. Okay, so let's keep reading. "The horsemen lift up both the bright sword and the glittering spear." Okay, this is a parable or a metaphor for the word, the nuclear missile. Okay, that's a bright sword and a glittering spear. He's dealing with missiles. Okay, it says, "And there is a multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses. And there is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses," representing just mass death. That's what the scriptures, speaks about: mass death, nuclear destruction, World War III, which we know is going to be fought with nuclear missiles. Okay, everything you see going on in the earth right now, you see all the different nations, different countries, starting to heat up towards one another. This is all biblical prophecy. Okay, let's keep reading. But this, in Nahum 3, again, Nineveh is, to America is modern day Nineveh. Let's keep reading. "Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms, and families through her witchcrafts." You see, and that's what America does. America is the whore that you can read about in Revelation, the harlot, right? And she's a well-favored harlot. Why? Because all these people, these different foreign nations, they make money off of Babylon, America. So she's favored, but she's losing her favor. Okay? Let's read about that. Let me see. It's Obadiah 1. Okay, here we go. Obadiah 1 and 7 is the point. It says, "All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee." Okay, and that's the point, but I'll keep reading the verse. But the men that are, the confederacy, so these people that have, these other nations that have been part of Babylon, in for example, NATO, the EU, right? These are the confederacy of men that was together, but now they're against them and have deceived thee, it says. Okay? It says, and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not find in that day, saith Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau, that's the government. All right. So this goes into the Edomites and how they're gonna, their own people are in their confederacy are going to turn against these American Edomites. Okay. Let's keep reading. That phone chimed on that. See. It says, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, America, the mistress of witchcrafts, and she's a mistress because people don't, a lot of people don't realize America is Babylon the Great, and also spiritual Nineveh. All right, America's got a lot of spiritual monikers in the scriptures, but you have to have a spiritual eye, like I said, to understand and to see that. And only the elect are going to have that faith and understanding and that spiritual, where the Holy Spirit's dealing with you. You got to be of the elect. If whenever you see those, whether you agree with them or not, when you see us on the street corners, the so-called, you guys like to call them the black Hebrew Israelites, even though we are the Hebrew Israelites. Okay. But the thing is those men have the Holy Spirit dealing with them. Okay? And if you don't believe the message of the Hebrew Israelites, then guess what? You are not of the elect, because you can't receive the knowledge of the truth according to understanding. You're stuck on either you don't believe at all, or you're stuck on lies you've been taught your whole life. Okay? Which the scriptures speaks and prophesies about. This book is going to be, taught by the enemy to our own people, okay, in these last days. Let's keep reading. Behold, I am against thee, saith Yahweh of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And this is the prophecy of what Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, he's doing this. He's already doing this, causing this place shame, showing the other nations their nakedness. Nakedness going into shame, because you see how Babylon used to be the big bully on the block on the planet Earth, right? And now it's not so much. Just look at what happened with Iran, or what's happening with Iran and America. Iran is not submitting to America, right? So that's because why? Because they're not the same bully that they used to be, Because now the other nations have leveled up with America. Okay? So keep reading. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste, who will bemoan her. Shit, still up here. Still up. All right. So these other nations, let me read that again. It says, and it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste, who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comforters for thee? Okay, and again, America is Nineveh spiritually, and it's going to be laid waste. Okay, it says, art thou better than Populus? No, that was situate among the rivers that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea. Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite. Put and Lubim were thy helpers. Put and Lubim were the helpers. Yet she was carried away when she went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces on the top of all the streets, and they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. Okay? Because the Israelites, speaking about the Israelites, because we're the ones who were carried away captives. Okay? Thou also shalt be drunken, thou shalt be hid, and thou shalt seek strength because of the enemy. Okay? And America is drunk. That's the whore that, she's drunk off that Babylonian juice. She's drunk off the wine. And she's going to taste the wrath of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Because, it says here, thou also shalt be drunken, thou shalt be hid. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. Okay, America's going to be utterly destroyed. Behold, thy people in the midst by nuclear fire. That's why you got to get right with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai if you're an Israelite. Because you got to, when that time comes, when these countries, these nations start to unleash their missiles, you don't want to be sitting here in Babylon, America. You want to go up in a chariot. That's what true salvation is. Going into what you ignorantly refer to as a UFO. That's literally what it is. When these missiles come, you don't want to be sitting here in Babylon, America. You better pray that you're of the elect and you go up in one of those chariots. So-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, you better wake the F up, man. You got to, wake, as they say, wake up and smell the coffee. These heathen, they've rocked you like a baby to sleep. You don't, to the point of you don't know who you are. You don't know, the laws and statutes of the Most High Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. You don't know what's actually expected, what's actually considered righteous. You don't know any of this. So that's why I say you Israelites need to wake up. The elect are going to have the spirit to wake up from the bullshit and wake up from the false doctrines, these false religions. It's going to come to the point where the elect is sealed, and the Most High is going to unleash. He's going to let those angels that are holding back the four winds, he's going to let those things go. And when that happens, all chaos and all chaos and destruction is coming. So you Israelites who don't believe the prophets who are out there teaching, or who the Holy Spirit's dealing with, the Holy Spirit through Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai has given us the true understanding on the scriptures. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, it don't matter. You don't need to believe we're the prophets. But the Most High has put this spirit on his men who are of the tribes of, from Judah all the way down to Issachar, from the so-called blacks all the way down to the so-called Mexicans. All right? We're out here doing what has been called unto us. Okay? Verse 13, it says, Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open until thine enemies, the fire shall devour thy bars. Okay? And that's metaphorically speaking, devouring the bars. It's going to be devouring these cities, these towns, I did lessons on it. It talks about several times in the scriptures how it's going to be worse than Sodom and Gomorrah, which when that happened, 5 cities, 2 Sodom and Gomorrah and 3 surrounding cities all got burnt up. America, when you look it up, it's got like almost 20,000 cities. Okay, that's why you can't compare it to Sodom and Gomorrah. How do you compare 5 cities to almost 20,000 cities all getting devoured by fire? Okay, 14. Draw thee waters for the siege, fortify thy strongholds, go into clay and tread the mortar and make strong the bricklin. This is Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua mocking you Edomites. He's telling you, just make your shit strong. And you know, it says, fortify thy strongholds. That part of that is the space force that they have. You know, they're trying to put a stronghold up in space now. The Esau, the so-called white man, he thinks that he can take on Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, his creator. That's how proud he is. He thinks he can take the creator. That's why he set up a space force. And you can read about that too in the scriptures. It talks about how Babylon America is going to be destroyed in 1 hour. So you know you have the space force for nothing. Because when Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua visit the earth and the angels, you know, your strongholds, your satellites, your military, your fucking space force, it's all going to come to naught. You know, and the Most High and his men are going to laugh at you, according to the scriptures. Okay? So that's why the men who are sincere in this knowledge, we do what the Lord puts in our heart. If it happens to be going against the so-called white man, the Edomite, then guess what? That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to keep doing until he establishes his name once again in the earth. And he will. We believe through the faith and through the knowledge and understanding. We know he's going to exalt his name. So let's read 15. There shall the fire devour thee, the sword shall cut thee off, it shall eat up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm, make thyself many as the locust. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven. The cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. So, yeah, that's what I was just saying. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven. Yeah, because Esau Edom, he set up his satellites in the heavens, you know, and what's happening with that? He's able to, you know, it's what they call it, I'm trying to remember the term they use for, like, e-commerce. E-commerce is done all on the internet. That's how people make money, on the internet. All right? You can read more about the internet in the scriptures in Psalm the 19th chapter, where if you have the spirit to receive it, you can go read that right after this lesson, showing you that listen, the internet is even in the Bible. Okay? It says, thy crown are as the locusts, and thy captains as the great grasshoppers, which camp in the hedges in the cold day. But when the sun ariseth, they flee away, and their place is not known where they are. Okay? Thy shepherds slumber, O king of Assyria. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathereth them. Right? And then again, we tell you, America is Nineveh. It's also Assyria. Okay? You know, the modern day Assyrian, and we say this all the time, the modern day Assyrian, the modern day Egyptian, are you Edomites. Because why? Because you are the ones who the Most High has ruling over his people right now. But he's about to take that heaven and that rulership away from you. Verse 19, there is no healing of thy bruise, thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap their hands over thee, and upon whom hath not thy wickedness passed continually. Okay? So yeah, just going in, this place is through, man. The scriptures, the prophets, the ancient prophets, the modern prophets, we are all on one accord. We are all on one spirit. Okay? Matter of fact, the ancient prophets of old are back today, you see, through reincarnation, regeneration. So for you to say, oh, there ain't no prophets in the Bible, well, you don't understand reincarnation. Or I'm sorry, because they say there ain't no prophets nowadays. All right? Go to Wisdom of Solomon 7:27 to go read about the scriptures tell you the prophets are in all ages. Okay? So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close out on that. Just ran with the spirit. It's been a pretty good day considering where we are. But, With that, I hope this lesson was edifying. I know it was to the elect, and the elect only. But with that, I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ka-Hudash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge Allah Akyam, pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom, shalom to the elect.